Hey everybody, Andy Brady here again to talk a little bit more about air quality. I am an indoor air quality expert, and I recorded a very long feature film length version of what is mold, when is it an issue, what do you do next? But I wanted a much smaller, digestible version of it to kind of talk about if you have mold in your home, your office, your apartment, your student housing, your building that you don't own it, whatever it might be. What are some steps you can do to make sure your air quality is good without calling in professionals, somebody who's going to charge you an appropriate but much larger fee in order to do a full-on inspection and air quality testing. And perhaps maybe you're in an environment where they won't allow a professional to come in and do that testing for you. So let's get right into it. All right, everybody. So again, brief recap of indoor air quality and what you're looking for is what you need if you're worried about mold, yeast, or fungus inside of your home. Whether you've seen it, you haven't seen it, maybe you've got a doctor letting you know you're sick from it, maybe you know you've got an allergy and you have issues inside of a building and you want testing done. So some real quick things for you guys to know before you go down this avenue, spend a bunch of money and do more harm than good. All right, so first and foremost, let's get out of the way some of the testing that I do not recommend for a couple reasons. Not because they're not useful in their own respects, not because they don't have uses, but because depending on the situation, if you're sick from mold and you're being told you can't get testing or you can't afford to get testing or it's just not convenient to get testing, there are options for you. First and foremost, the Petri dish samples. I'll put a link to it in the description. I do not recommend them, but in case you want one, I will have the link down there in the description. They are not super useful. They're going to tell you what mold is in the air, but since there's mold everywhere all the time, we rarely ever see one of those samples come back that it does not have positive for mold. Why would that be useful sometimes? Depending on the type of mold that is found on the dish, if you send it off to the laboratory to be analyzed, it might be useful knowing what type of mold it is. Not likely. Save your money. Don't buy them. The next kind of sampling is there are some laboratories out there that will have you take a Swiffer, and they'll have you Swiffer all over your house, and they'll have you send that data in to get an idea of what's going on in your home. The big red flag here is there's no way to document how much you Swiffered. Did you Swiffer 3,600 square foot of windowsills, or did you Swiffer the top of your refrigerator and that's it? Not only that, when was the last time the home was cleaned? So when was the last time you wiped the top of your refrigerator before you ran the Swiffer test? So are you testing 16 years worth of potential mold buildup, which could be a natural level, or are you testing only the last month's worth, in which case it would be a much more useful sample to collect? Again, it has its positives and negatives, but be very wary before you do a test like that and then decide, doomsday, end of the world, throw all your belongings away. Another one that I caution people against is the vacuum sample tests. Usually comes with a little capsule, you put it on the end of your vacuum hose, and it tells you to vacuum different areas. But in order to make that test, it's actually called an ERMI test. In order to make that test accurate, there is a big, long list of steps that you have to take that nobody ever does, that the laboratory typically does not require you to do, which means those test results will be called into question pretty much immediately. So don't really recommend those unless you're paying a professional to do it. And then most importantly, you need to research what is that test good for and what is it not good for, because it's being used by remediation companies to try to sell you on remediation that you absolutely don't need, because the data that you're getting is not representative of what they are trying to tell you. And then the last one I want to mention is the protein swab tests, where you can swab it, put it in the tube, and the liquid turns purple to let you know there's proteins there. Congratulations. It could be peanut butter. It could be skin cells. It could be animal dander. It could be pollen. Anything with a protein structure built in is going to set those devices off, and they're going to show you that it's protein. So again, that test has a time and a place, but it's also very much misused on the individual level due to mostly misinformation. It could be used inappropriately by a landlord or a maintenance person to try to show you that what you're looking at is not mold, even though just because they just wiped it clean and then did the swab doesn't mean that there's not still mold growth there. Or it could be by a professional who doesn't know better or does know better, being the more scary option, swabbing something and saying, oh my gosh, look how much protein samples we have here, tons of mold, you're gonna die, you need to remediate, blah, blah, blah. So those are the ones that I want to caution against. The one that you really should get is a professional air quality test. An air quality test is fantastic because two people running the test side by side or within a couple hours of each other in the same home are going to get relatively close, if not identical, test results. And because that test is repeatable over and over and over again, it makes it a much more scientifically accurate test. But let's say you're in a situation, which is kind of what this video is geared towards, of, maybe you don't have permission to do the testing there. Well, you have the right to know what's in the air quality you're breathing. So if you decide to do a test on your own, there is one device that exists out there that will actually allow you to do that. Now, this is not a professional grade test. This is a consumer grade test. So the way I like to explain it to people is it's like using a thermometer at home. You think you have a fever, you put the thermometer in, you got a fever of 104, you then go to the doctor, they then retake your temperature, and then they get your history, and then they try to figure out what's wrong with you. They don't just immediately take that sample and say, oh yeah, okay, this is what's wrong with you because you called me with a temperature. So this device right here is called a My Mold Detective, and it is a really neat, really advanced device. And I realize I don't have any of the samples with me real quick, so I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. So a My Mold Detective is a device that you can get off of Amazon. I'll have links in the description. I am not affiliated with them, but they are affiliate links, so if you choose to buy one of these and use my link, I could make a small commission on it, so I'd appreciate if you use that link. And while I'm talking about what I can get out of it, if you're going to find any of this information useful, if this information might help you, please comment, let us know how is this information useful to you, and more importantly, please subscribe to the page so I can keep uploading more and more of these air quality tips, more and more of the stuff from my professional background, which is indoor air quality expert. And I want to share as much information with you guys as possible. But if nobody's going to watch them, no reason for me to upload them. So you have a device like this. It is consumer grade. I can't say that enough. And then you have these, which is called an aerosol. Now this device right here has an intake where the air will be pulled in and an out where it will actually go into the machine. So there's no chance of cross-contamination because it's bringing in fresh air to the top. Inside of this device, there is actually a microscope slide. And when you're done running the test, you stick these back over top of it, and you submit the data, you submit the information to My Mold Detective on their website, and you put it into the prepaid packaging. You send it off to their laboratory where they will pull out that microscope slide and they will start counting spores. And then what you'll get from them is an independent third-party test result that's going to show you there is a 1,300 count of Penicillium aspergillus. There is a 900 count of Stachybotrys. There is a whatever. So you're going to run one of these tests inside your home, typically in the moldiest area, and you have to run one outside because outside is considered standard at the time of running the test, and all of your test results will be compared against the outdoor sample. So you do one outside, so a minimum of one. You do one inside, typically in the moldiest area, in the area of the home where you would like to know the information. But then I recommend the kit that has extra of these because I believe it's very important to run a couple other tests inside of your home. For example, if you have a utility closet, an unfinished basement, something like that area, even a crawl space perhaps, that you might be worried about the air quality because that air is coming up into the home, where you can run another test just to get an idea of what's going on in there. The other place that you could use this is, let's say somebody's allergic to mold, they're having issues in the home, but the mold that you suspect is not actually in the room where they have an issue. Run a test there as well because it'll give you an idea of how much has that mold spread. After you run these tests, you do send this off to the independent laboratory run by My Mold Detective, where they will send you back data. And the data will be empirical lab data to tell you, here's your outdoor numbers, here's your indoor numbers. Your indoor numbers should replicate as close as possible to your outdoor numbers. The moment we start seeing 5 times higher inside, 10 times higher inside, God forbid 20 times higher inside, that's when we start worrying that you could have an issue, a real mold issue inside of your home, an air quality issue. And what do you do at that point? That's when you call the professional. So again, let's say you're in a situation, you're a renter, and your landlord has said, no, nobody's coming in to do a test. Maybe it's an office building and you're concerned about it, but no matter how many times you raise the concerns, nobody takes it seriously. Maybe it's a school dorm. There's lots of situations where you might be on somebody else's property and they are not going to give permission to the inspector to come in to run these kinds of tests. And rather than you having to fight with them, you can start with something like this that I cannot stress enough is like a thermometer at home. You take the data from this, you get it interpreted, it's right there, you read about it, you do a little bit of research online, and then you can hand that data to whoever needs to have it. You can say, here it is, these are the test results, and it's showing that there are elevated levels of mold inside of this building. I need a professional inspection. And this is the kind of data that's going to get you the ability to have a professional inspection, to have somebody come in and test your air quality to see what's going on. And the other part of that, once you have this device, you can run it over and over and over again, so you can get an idea of how is your air quality being maintained. And why that is, again, important is, let's say that you do run this test. Let's say that you don't need to run this test because somebody voluntarily says, I'm going to do a treatment here to remediate for mold. You need to worry about the air quality more than anything else. Who cares about the look of the mold? What you should care about is, what are you breathing? What kind of spores are you breathing? At what concentrations? Is this potentially making me sick? And the overwhelming majority of remediations that happen in this country do not get any kind of post-testing whatsoever, right? Especially if you, the consumer, don't know that you should get it done. So again, if you already have the device, or if you purchased it just for that purpose, let's say that you are renting a property, an office building, and you're worried about mold, and you've let the landlord know over and over again, and finally they took care of it. Or maybe they didn't. You ran one of these, gave them some empirical data, and then they took care of it. Well, unless they choose to spend money to send off to get an air quality test result, all you know is that the mold is visibly gone, but you have no idea if you're still breathing it on a daily basis. So again, you already own the device, or you bought it specifically for this purpose. You get you a couple more of these aerosols from My Mold Detective, and you run a couple more tests. You run one inside of the moldiest area where the mold problem was in the home. You run another one outside, because you have to have your baseline sample. And then if you'd like, you run a third one somewhere else in the home to make sure that cross-contamination did not happen during the remediation. So this is very important to know, so that if, let's say, someone you believe is very underqualified to do the job, does the job, this is your way of making sure that it was done properly. There's a lot of well-intentioned people out there that have heard or seen how to do mold remediation, but for all you know, they watched a YouTube video the day before they came into your house and did remediation. So unless you test for what you can't see, you can't be 100% positive. You can't be super confident in what happened. More often than not, I'll see a quote for $12,000 to remediate an office building, right? And then the lowest bid comes in at $785. And then we come in, we get called in a month later to do air quality testing, and it is atrociously bad because none of the proper remediation steps were taken. That's how they were able to do it so inexpensively, to the point of it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There's no way they're doing proper remediation, but that's who they chose to get remediated. It was out of your control, landlord, whatever. They are the ones that hired somebody to come in, and this gives you the ability to say, you should have hired a reliable company who does mold remediation, who knows what they're doing. I deserve clean air quality. What are we going to do to fix this issue? So that is my drilled down version, instead of being an hour long, just real quick about testing yourself and what tests you should and should not do. Again, my name is Andy Brady, and I am an indoor air quality expert. I train new businesses who are getting into the remediation industry or into the testing industry. I train them and I teach them start to finish what they need to do, what they need to learn, how they need to find mold, how to test for mold, all these other things. So I'm not just a random dude on the, well, I guess I am just a random dude on the internet, but I'm a random dude on the internet with experience, and I am a professional indoor air quality expert. So if you'd be interested in hearing more of this, please click that subscribe button. I'd like to see who's actually interested in hearing more about this stuff, and we can go from there as to whether we upload more videos or not. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.